Hi, this is Scott Speck, Artistic Director of the Chicago Philharmonic, with the second part of my interview with Elizandro Garcia-Montoya, clarinetist with the Chicago Phil since about 2009. Today we learn what Elizandro's been up to in quarantine, some of the projects he's got going, and a special performance that he will be playing for us of a solo work. So here's part two of my interview with Elizandro Garcia-Montoya. We're back with Elizandro Garcia-Montoya. Good to see you again.
Good to
Um,
see you,
tell,
Scott.
tell us, this is really interesting to me. Okay, so you come from Central America, from Costa Rica. Your last name is Garcia-Montoya. And,
Correct.
that combination of the two names is something we often hear in Latin American names. Tell us a little bit about that.
Basically, usually when you have the combined two names, the first last name is your father's last name, and the second one is your mother's name. So I thought that even to make my first name longer, I decided to use them both of them. So you can cover two lines in a program.
That's right. We need at least two lines to write Alessandro Garcia-Montoya. Um, Tell me, Alessandro, some of what you've been doing during this quarantine, because of course, we were supposed to perform in April and in May and in June, and it just didn't happen because of this quarantine. What have you been doing to keep yourself in good form and to keep your mind active during this time?
I've been doing two interesting things. Well, besides raising my 1.5-year-old daughter, which was very challenging, so I ended up being the primary caretaker for her for a while. But we had this project with my chamber ensemble, which is Fifth House Ensemble here in Chicago. And we started doing a certification program for deep listening. So the Center for Deep Listening and the deep listening philosophy was started by Pauline Oliveros around 1970. And she's a contemporary of John Cage and those composers in that era. There was a lot of experimentation, but she kind of wanted music to be accessible to everybody. So this concept of deep listening is not only sonic meditation, but it also involves movement and dreaming. I can talk a lot about this because I love this philosophy, but the communal aspect of this is what is very interesting, and just the difference between voluntary listening or hearing and voluntary listening. Yeah, that's a very important difference.
So, what this strikes me as is kind of the sonic equivalent of really observing your visual environment if you want to be a painter, for example. Like I've found whenever I've studied visual art or trying to create visual art, that at least half of it, besides the technique, is actually observing what's in front of you and really seeing what's there very specifically. So is there a connection there between that and what you're calling deep listening?
Yeah, absolutely. The sensation in all forms, not only through your ears, but through your skin, for example, breathing, the contact, hearing your environment, hearing nature, hearing your thoughts. All of this is connected, and we should be full individuals like that, or think of ourselves like that. And there's a powerful book that I love, which is The Power of Now by
Oh,
Eckhart
yes.
Tolle. And I love the philosophy and things, but once I started studying deep listening, that takes you to the core of the philosophy, which is being present in the moment. When you're listening attentively and being immersed in where you are,
Now,
it really brings you to that specific moment. which
You
is
know,
an
I have to say, Alessandro, that this is something that has been very much on my mind regarding when we're performing music for people. The oral experience that every member of the audience has is actually different, depending on what kind of thoughts are rattling around in each of our heads and what might be actually preventing us from truly focusing on the sounds that are coming to us. And I've often been fascinated by the concept of what we can do as performers to, I don't want to use as strong a word as coerce, but somehow to really entice the listener to really be hearing something the way that we're trying to express it.
Mhm.
And I know that you know several both philosophers and other kinds of musicians have talked about this. How do you play music in such a way that it's continuously compelling, that every moment of it is compelling, so that the audience, if they want to, is really always focused and always listening? So that seems
Absolutely.
related, yeah?
Yeah, and I would like to point out something that you always remind us is to play chamber music with each other. And this concept is so important when you play in smaller groups. You are when you're one at a part, you are really you have to listen to your other players, and then you things start evolving, creativity becomes fresher. And to quote one of my favorite conductors, George Sell, who
Yeah.
said the best orchestral musician is the best chamber musician. And I love this concept. I think when you find this synergy between the players, the audience, everybody feels that. And that's what I love. I mean, you remind us all the time about this, and that's why I think the sound of the Chicago Philharmonic is special.
Is really special. And you know, I have to say there's a whole nother video I could be making about philosophy of conducting, and maybe someday I will, but I'll just say briefly that I think the greatest conductor in the world cannot hold a candle to the collective wisdom of all the musicians on that stage. And if there's a way to channel that collective wisdom or help everyone to be locked into each other as they
Mhm.
play, that
Yes.
that unleashes the potential for the highest possible quality of performance. And that's why, as you say, I'm always emphasizing chamber music. Well, there's so
Absolutely.
much more to talk about, but I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it here. But I know that you're going to be recording a piece also that we're going to put online. Can you tell us just very briefly about that?
Sure. This piece I want to record, it's called Studio Ritmico, which means rhythmic study, and was written by a friend of mine, actually, Miguel del Aguila, who is a very accomplished composer from Uruguay. He lives in Seattle now, but he studied in Europe during the 80s, and there's all this influential new music school of thinking, but he kind of stuck to his Latin American roots, and he writes with very strong rhythmic drive and beautiful melodies. And yeah, this would be a treat to record for you
I can't
guys.
wait. Can't wait. There's another piece of his that I love and I've conducted called Conga Line in Hell. That's a piece of his that I
Interesting.
really enjoy. Anyways, maybe that will entice people to listen to the recording that we're putting up. Elizandro Garcia-Montoya, thank you
Yeah.
so much for joining us. It's a huge pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much, Scott, for having me.
Yeah.
It's my pleasure.
All right. Stay healthy, stay well. Take
Thank you.
care.
Same to you. Bye.
Bye.